All right. What's up, good people? Welcome to this amazing podcast, Around the Wicket. My name is Vivek Vinayak, and I'm joined in by my buddy, Ryan Mayfield, right there in the United States of America. I believe he's sitting right now in front of his computer in Arkansas. Am I right, Ryan? Buddy, what's up?
Yeah, I am in Arkansas, right in the middle of the U.S., like you said, in front of my computer, staying at home just like everybody else is right now in the middle of this global pandemic.
Absolutely. Our heart goes out to all of them who are actually battling the COVID-19 virus, who are affected whether directly or indirectly or staying at home. We wish and pray that this virus completely goes away and we're all back to normal lives. But today we heard this podcast for something special, and that is to discuss about cricket, a topic which me and Ryan are equally or rather more passionate about than anything else. Ryan, of course, has been a media professional who's been in the US for some time, who's also spent his time in India for a long, long time. And I think that is where, Ryan, where you picked up your passion for cricket. Am I right, Ryan?
Yeah. So before I moved to the U.S., to India. I moved there in 2007, right, which was right after the World Cup. And so I actually got really into cricket before I moved to India because the World Cup was going on. And so I remember watching, the final with Sri Lanka and Dhoni with the helicopter shot to win, And so, yeah, I've been following cricket since then. But yeah, living in India, obviously, it's a big, big deal there. And so seeing it all the time, being around the matches, yeah, that's definitely where I picked up more of the passion for it.
Ryan has been in India for a long, long time. But if you're listening to this podcast for the first time, you should know something about India. We are a country which has 1.3 billion people. We have so many different religions and so many different cultures. But despite our differences, what brings us together in front of a TV screen or in a cricket stadium is the game of cricket, because we just love the game, we live the game, and we do anything for the game. And I think Ryan has realized that when he was in India and he started following the World Cup, of course, who can forget that finals at the Wankhede in 2011, MS Dhoni, the last shot, and the way Ravi Shastri kind of, exclaimed for that shot. And there was so many people jumping up their seat. India winning the World Cup for the second time. And I think that this podcast, Ryan, would probably be a great platform for us to discuss cricket. Since you're an American and I'm an Indian, I have so much to say and you have so much to say. I'm guessing Americans would be interested to know what cricket is all about. It's like baseball, but it's not exactly like baseball. But let's talk about what cricket means to you, Ryan.
Well, so, since people are just listening to this audio, what they don't know is that not only am I an American, I'm also a white guy, right? I have no Indian blood in me. I'm a white guy in America, which is like about the furthest you can get from anybody knowing anything about cricket. I don't know anybody that played cricket growing up. I never saw it growing up. None of my friends know what it is. And so anytime I talk about it with friends here, I always have to explain it a little. And it's so much what you just said. It's similar to baseball in some ways, but in other ways, obviously, it's very different. And I think that actually makes it kind of confusing sometimes for Americans that have grown up with baseball, is because it is so similar, but not quite. They have trouble, with some of the different rules and things like that. And there's some words that are used in one way in cricket and another way in baseball, like innings or pitch. Those mean very different things in each of those sports.
Cricket has always been a very popular game in India. Growing up as a teenager, as a young kid, I always looked up to the greats like Sachin Tendulkar or Saurav Ganguly or Sir Vivian Richards or Glenn McGrath, Shane Warne. All these people really inspired you to pick up the bat or the ball. But of late, other sports has also been picking up in India, like football or tennis or badminton. And a lot of people criticize cricket to be a very slow game, or it's like a gentleman's game. It's not a game which tests your athletic endurance. But what I truly believe and personally believe, cricket is a thinking game. There's so much to think about while playing a 20-over game or a one-day match or a test series. And in fact, a test match is a 5-day long process where a batsman literally puts his patience, his ability to think on the feet, his ability to slow down. So much happening in the game of cricket. And if you don't know much, try to go to YouTube and see some last over matches, where everybody is having their nails being bitten off waiting for the match to finish. I've not really introduced myself. So I have a strong background in the media industry. I started off as a radio jockey in 94.3 Radio 1. I used to host a Sunday show called Maximum Music Countdown, giving the top 10 music charts of the week. And then I moved on to television, where I did sports journalism. I did a lot of cricket journalism as well, interviewing all the IPL stars from Australia, from South Africa, and all of them. And also being an entertainment journalist, this has been my passion to speak about cricket and how cricket has been an integral part of my life growing up. I also used to be a cricketer, by the way, Ryan. I think I've told this to you before. I played the districts and the zonals, and I've not been a very great batsman, but I used to be a good spinner, and I was heavily influenced by the great Shane Warne and the kind of flippers he used to use, and the kind of spin he got on the turf was just amazing. I remember Ryan played a lot of cricket when he was in India. He also gave me a bat, a Reebok bat, which was of a Kashmir willow, which I still have. I don't know if you know that.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, so I played a lot there. I played on a couple of teams, when I used to live in Bangalore, not for very long. But then when I moved back to the U.S., I found, the most near teams to me, and joined one of them for a little while, a little club team here. And that was always funny because, again, I was the only white guy on it. My team was all Indians, and we would play against other teams that were either all Indians or even there was one team that was all Pakistani. And so it was really interesting, being on long road trips, going to matches, and it's all Gujarati music just blaring in the van. And but yeah, I love playing it. And you're talking about your skills, so I like batting. I'm probably not as good at batting as I wish that I was, but I feel like I'm a pretty decent spinner as well. So I do the more of the off spin, and I like that. I have a lot of fun with that.
I also would like to be a good batsman, but I haven't really improved my skills on that front. But, I've always listened to what A.B. de Villiers from South Africa has always said. And people always ask him, what makes you a great hitter of the cricket ball? And he always says that I watch the ball till the end. And that's such a special ability, isn't it, Ryan? Watching the ball till the end. I mean, if you have a tail bowling to you at 140 k's per hour, watching the ball till the end is so tough. But somebody like A.B. de Villiers actually turns back and reverse sweeps that ball to a six. So I don't know how they do it, but I guess that's a special ability and inborn talent or something you can practice.
It must be for like AB. Whenever AB bats, to him, the ball must look like it's moving in slow motion, right? Because he hits the most ridiculous shots into places that it shouldn't be possible for it to go. And then you'll look at him and he's like sitting on the ground. He'll hit a six out of the stands. It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it's called Mr. 360 for a reason. And talking about, cricket, and I mean, this is the season, unfortunately, we're not experiencing the kind of cricket India used to experience, isn't it? I mean, this is the season. I mean, April and May used to be the IPL season. Indians all over the world, cricket lovers like you all over the world, hooked on your television sets and supporting your favorite team. Unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that is not happening, and it doesn't look like it can happen in the future as well. But what are your thoughts? I mean, there are a lot of players like Ajinkya Rahane supporting that we could play the T20 tournament in a closed environment without the spectators. Whereas players like David Warner saying that, playing without spectators is like watching wrestling without spectators. I mean, the World Wrestling Entertainment has been doing that. I don't know if you knew, but they've been having their television like SmackDown and Raw without the audience. And a lot of people feel it's kind of weird, but they're still doing it. So what are your thoughts on that?
So, a year ago, I was actually in India with you a year ago, right now, actually, just a few days ago, a year ago, I was at an IPL match. It was, we were watching RCB versus Kings 11 that night. And then two nights before that, you and I were watching on the TV.
On the TV.
It was Chennai, right?
Chennai Super Kings,
RCB. And RCB won that, right?
Yes, they won that. And I remember we were sitting in this cafe called Blow. We were doing a hookah. Your wife was with us. Yes. And she was like, we were jumping and screaming. And
it was so much
understand
fun.
What's happening.
It was so much fun.
And this was almost about 12 o'clock in the night on Brigade Road. No, not on Brigade Road, on Church Street.
Yeah,
on Church Street. Near MG Road. Yes.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm I've heard some of the different players and their ideas about what to do with the IPL, and for me personally, I just miss it, and I wish I could turn the television on and watch a match. And so, but that's also really selfish. I know that like, it's not just about what I want, the fact that I miss cricket, but I understand, kind of both sides of it. I don't really, I say that I don't really care as much about like, that's just not how cricket should be played. I mean, honestly, if you go to any test match, especially in the first 2 or 3 days of a test match, there's not usually much of a crowd. Right. Like that's pretty common. But I do understand. So I heard some players talking about like, yes, we can do it with limited staff and, limited people. And I think that could work. But I also heard another player talk about, well, even when you have limited people, there's still probably going to be a couple hundred people there when you talk about, media and the groundskeepers and the umpires, not to mention the players and coaching staffs. And so I certainly see how that could be both good or bad. I see both sides of that. But I'm hoping it will happen. I'm hoping that eventually we'll get some IPL matches this year. Maybe even I could see a shortened season where they play less matches or maybe have a slightly different format. I was talking with Aaron, who's a friend of mine that's with the Rajasthan Royals now. That's right. And he was saying that he thinks it will happen eventually. And so I hope he's right. I miss it. So.
Yeah, there are a lot of countries like Sri Lanka and the West Indies who kind of hinted to the BCCI of probably offering to host the IPL for them. Because let's not forget that when there's a big league like the Indian Premier League, similar on the lines in football like the English Premier League, there's a lot of money riding on this tournament.
Yeah.
The team owners and the endorsement deals and the television broadcast rights. I mean, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars. And nobody wants to go under a loss, despite knowing that, there's a pandemic here. Probably, I think the BCCI might just push it to September or August or even later than that. But who knows? I mean, in a country like Sri Lanka or West Indies, where there are very few, COVID-19 cases, or the situation has been brought under control. Let's not forget, even a country like New Zealand has actually, the other day, the Prime Minister of New Zealand actually said that we've almost kind of, had no cases in a long, long time. So there's so many options for BCCI to think about it. Let's not forget that many years back, BCCI did hold the IPL in Dubai, in the Middle East. I don't know if you know that.
And not many fans there.
And there are not many fans there. But actually, the Indian, the immigrants and the Indian expats there actually thronged the stadiums to watch the game. And I think there was also once where the IPL was done in South Africa, in Johannesburg, in Cape Town, and all these places. So, I mean, it's a possibility to expect an IPL to happen, during probably later in the year. But let's talk about, we can't talk about the current matches because there's no matches happening. But what's your favorite team? What's your favorite team in the entire IPL?
In IPL, so I would probably say I'm a CSK fan more than others teams, but that's only because of my favorite player, which is Dhoni. So if he's ever not part of that squad, and retires from that or whatever, then I'll have a different team. But I lived in Bangalore for several years, and so I'm a big RCB fan. I love AB and a lot of the people on that squad. So I like those two teams the most, but if they ever play against each other, I'm usually rooting for CSK.
The relationship between a Bangalorean and with RCB is like the relationship between the prodigal son and his father. And, we keep hoping for the best, that RCB can win a title, we can win a title. But every time they either come this close or they miserably perform. And we, like the father, say, hey, come back, son. It's okay. We still have the same blood. We still support you, RCB. There's a colloquial word called "E Sala Cup Namde." That means in Kannada, this time the cup is ours. And we've been saying it for the last 11 years. And the cup has never been ours.
Well, RCB is the best team, like, as far as getting talent together on the same squad, but they just haven't been able to make it work together to get a championship, right? Like you said, they've been close so many times, but I mean, gosh, think about the players that they have had in their squad, whether that's been, of course they have Kohli and AB, right? But then they've had Dale Steyn, right? They've had Chris Gale.
Michelle Stark.
They had Stark. Yes. Chehal. Like, they've had so many big time stars that it's just crazy that they haven't been able to to win the whole thing yet.
Yeah, I mean, they're great on paper. And, when it
Yeah.
comes to performance and those key moments, cricket is all about handling those key moments. I don't know. Ironically, the Indian cricket team also, according to my analysis, has not been a team which manages pressure really well. If you look at the last World Cup where we actually lost, we did really well in the England World Cup. We came so close, we couldn't handle pressure really well, and we kind of lost it. So in comparison to RCB and the Indian cricket team, I think we have that problem. But talking about some great teams, I think CSK, hats off and hands down, has been the team in the IPL which is dominated from the word go.
And
I
last
think the
year,
ability. Yeah, last year.
Last year was such a heartbreaking year for me, because they were so close, and Shane Watson at the end, was just batting out of his shoes, and they were so close, and they were also the oldest team. The average age of their players was so much higher than all the other teams.
Buddy, have you ever noticed? Have you noticed? Players like Shane Watson, they play in RCB and they don't perform for anything. The moment they go to another team, they start performing like, they're worth a 10 crore, 12 crore kind of buyout. Chris Gayle never performed really well he did perform well for RCB, but towards the end, he didn't perform well. He got bought over by Kings XI Punjab and he played really well. Same thing with KL Rahul. He never performed in RCB, but played really well. So I don't know. Is this something to do with bad luck? I don't know. How do I call the fortune to the RCB?
I wonder, RCB's had some changes in the coaching department over the past several years, which is what tends to happen in any sport. If a team doesn't do well for long enough, they change the coach, right? They had, he was a player, Dan Vittori, but then became the coach at one point. And I don't even know who the coach was this year. Who do you remember who it is?
They actually took Gary Kirsten as the coach, but I think now I don't know who they have, but I think a lot of people are vying for that position again. But, interestingly, I don't know if you know, so as a journalist, as a sports journalist, I used to actually sit in the bidding room when auctions happen in the IPL.
No kidding. That's awesome.
I used to sit there and kind of note down the kind of prizes the team owners are paying for, and what's kind of who's going in, who's going out, and it used to be a very fantastic atmosphere. Looking at you have 10 kings from 10 countries, all of them rich, and they're kind of bidding for some prized possession like a yacht or or some kind of an island. So it's a special feeling being in an auction room, and kind of understanding who's going where and who's not going where. I think, according to me, one player who has been really lucky throughout this IPL has been Yuvraj Singh.
I was just going to bring him up. I'm so glad you said that. Yep.
Yuvraj Singh has been paid the most money, most number of times, and hasn't really, I can be wrong, but hasn't really given that kind of a performance so far.
Yeah. He's had some good seasons and good matches, but never, he's done very, very well in the IPL as far as money, but probably performance maybe hasn't matched as much with that.
Absolutely. It has not yet matched, the kind of expectation which the team owners or even the fans would probably have. I think since we don't have an IPL this year, it's great to discuss about the IPL which we've seen in the last 2-3 years. And I think one player, according to me, two players maybe, according to me, who've really come out strong in the last 2-3 years of IPL is Kane Williamson and David Warner. David Warner with the entire, ball tampering kind of controversy he got banned for. I think after that, the way he came back in the IPL and the way, when a batsman plays a stroke, you know that this guy is on fire. And you know that this guy is seeing the ball like a football and not like a cricket ball. He was just timing the ball, so beautifully, hitting everything out of the park. And Kane Williamson as well, what a player, a terrific player. And so humble as well. One of the most humble players I've seen in cricket, beating even Virat. I can't call Virat Kohli humble, but
he's gotten better in the last few years.
He's gotten better. He's gotten better.
The only other person I would add to your list from the IPL from the last few years is Andre Russell. Last year, Russell was just
I forgot that.
terrifying. You didn't want to bowl to Russell because he was just going to...
And that match against RCB, who can forget that match against RCB? Oh my God, that was carnage. That was massive destruction. That's like a
what
butcher
Sehwag used to be.
That's like a butcher under a lockdown, under house arrest. He's not getting to do what he loves doing. So he gets onto the field, and I mean, the guy is a West Indian, and the kind of
Yeah.
frame he has, the kind of power he has in his arms.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's. I think Kolkata Knight Riders have made some really good choices in the last few years.
They
In
have.
terms of
They
buying
have.
players, Andre
Yeah.
Russell. I think earlier they also had Ajanta Mendes, who was a very mystery kind of a spinner from Sri Lanka, which
Yeah.
he didn't play anymore.
And
But they've got some really good players.
and they also had the other spinner, kind of mystery spinner from West Indies.
Sunil Narayan. Oh God, what
Yes,
a buy!
Narayan. Yes, and
What a
not only
buy!
for his bowling, but for his batting too. He's an
Batting,
amazing
batting.
batsman.
Pinch hitter. I mean, in a game
Yeah.
like T20, you need a pinch hitter. And I used to always tell my friends, I can see similarities between Sunil Narayan and Moeen Ali. Moeen Ali has again been retained in RCB this year. A lot of criticism for that, but I know I understand why, because you need that player who can bowl well and also kind of pinch hit the ball. I remember in one match, Sunil Narayan came 6 overs, he scored 70 runs, and that's golden.
It's amazing.
That's like a dream. That's like a dream
Well,
for any team to have a player like that.
And especially in such a short format like the T20, like you need players that can play both sides of the ball, batting and bowling. That just makes you so much more valuable in the shorter format of the game.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, he was big. Did KKR, do they still have Shubham Gill? Do they have him?
I think they have Shubham Gill. They still have Shubham Gill.
So Gill's one of the up-and-coming players that I feel like could potentially have a really big future, both for the IPL, but potentially for India as well.
Absolutely. I think a lot of Americans don't realize that once you become a cricket star in India, it's no more just being a cricket star or a celebrity. People in India worship their cricketers as God,
Oh, yeah.
There is this really popular cricketer. I'm sure you've heard his name, a guy called Sachin Tendulkar. He actually has a temple built on his behalf in honor of him. And people actually worship these guys. And, everything changes. You're talking about Shubham Gill and, the future he has. Everything changes for cricketers once they get stardom. They get brand endorsements, they get TV shows, they get a hell lot of a package. I mean, an average, so the BCCI, the board which controls cricket in India, has 3 slabs for cricketers in India, the A, B, and C. So if you're an A-class cricketer at the BCCI, your average earning is anywhere between 3.5 to 5 crores or even more, even more. And that's a lot of money.
That's just from the BCCI, right? Like that's not even counting the endorsements.
Just from the BCCI.
Right.
Not
so
like endorsements.
I mean, you see endorsements with Kohli or Dhoni on different television commercials, and that's where so much of the money comes from.
That's where the money comes in.
For those biggest players anyway.
And now a guy like Virat Kohli has ventured into so many businesses. He has a restaurant. He has a sports management firm. He's invested in so many startups. And life really kicks off after you kind of become a cricketer. Talking about cricketers, I think 2 cricketers who really faced, I beg your pardon, a lot of criticism in the last 1 year was Hardik Pandya and KL Rahul. They got onto a television show called Coffee with Karan, which happens to be a chat show, a very candid chat show with celebrities talking about their bedroom secrets, about their about their crushes, about their love life. And I think they got so carried away that they were then not only were criticized by the public, but the BCCI banned them. And I think they were playing the New Zealand series, if I'm not wrong, and they were immediately deported back to India because they were not allowed to play anymore. What are your thoughts on success getting to the minds of cricketers, especially a guy like Hardik Pandya, who has not finished his 10th grade as well, because he only wanted to play cricket, and now that he's got all this fame and fortune, he's kind of lost it maybe.
Pandya is so talented, right? Like you want him on your side because, again, he can both bat and bowl, and he can do both of those very well.
Really well.
But he's also really young, and and that's what it is. I think, anybody that's young that comes into success and fame and money like that. I mean, not to say that someone that's older can't do this, but especially if you're young, you can get yourself into trouble very easily. And I feel like that's just some immaturity on his part. And I think you gotta be able to forgive things like that. People say stupid things and things that they regret. And I'm not one who wants to just totally cancel somebody, right, the first time they say something. Now, maybe they need to take a break and think about life and everything for a while. But I think
Maybe.
people need to have chances to come back and to grow and mature.
Maybe.
And if you try to, cancel every single person that said something really stupid at some point in their life, we're all going to
Maybe.
be in trouble,
You're all going to be in trouble. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
so yeah, it wasn't good. He shouldn't have said what he said, but I think, given time, he'll get older and hopefully mature and continue to be a great contributor for India, for Mumbai, or whoever he plays for.
We hope the same, because I saw him bat in that World Cup. I think the 2015. There was, I think the ICC. I'm not sure which tournament. There was one tournament against Pakistan which we lost, and we were chasing, and he really stood his ground and he held the mantle for a long time. A lot of people appreciated that innings of his. But I think in this podcast we haven't discussed about the other IPL teams like Mumbai Indians and Kolkata Knight Riders and the Rajasthan Royals. Rajasthan Royals, one team for me from the beginning, has always been a team which has not been good on paper, but has always performed extraordinarily. Like under the captaincy of Shane Warne or Shane Watson or now Ajinkya Rahane, they've somehow managed to Steve Smith. Now they have Steve Smith.
Yeah.
So they've somehow kind of been able to be a team to reckon with in the entire tournament. They've been underdogs, but they've really come out well.
I agree. They're very much one of the understated teams. They don't usually sign the biggest name players or spend the most money. They don't even, this may seem silly, but even the cheerleaders, you notice a big difference between like the cheerleaders for Rajasthan Royals and the cheerleaders for, say, like RCB. RCB is much more like Western, kind of looking cheerleaders, but I always loved Rajasthan's approach to it, because they're like, no, we're an Indian team. We're gonna pretend like we're not. And so I've loved that. I also love that, of course they don't have this anymore, but they used to have Dravid, and Dravid was always one of my favorite players.
Absolutely.
And so it was fun to get to watch him play T20, even though that's not exactly what he was known for. So I enjoyed that too. But yeah, they're a team that's usually very steady, right? They're not flashy. They don't start with a bang and then get worse throughout the season like some teams. They're just kind of steady. And so, yeah, I like them. I don't have any thing against
I think like Chennai Super Kings, I think the Mumbai Indians and Kolkata Knight Riders have been the on top of the league table always. Mostly every season you see Chennai Super Kings or Kolkata Knight Riders, Mumbai Indians, and maybe the Hyderabad the Sunrisers, now that the last two seasons. These are the top teams of the Indian Premier League, and they've always maintained that. According to me, the two teams which have always disappointed, and that is the Delhi Daredevils and the Bangalore Royal Challengers Bangalore. Somehow, I think even RCB has kind of had their share of, three finals and still not being able to make it. But Delhi Daredevils, for me, has just not entered the finals at all, and they've been the weakest team, according to me, in the Indian Premier League. Gautam Gambhir, he kind of stepped away the captaincy of the Kolkata Knight Riders. He became the captain of Delhi Daredevils because he's a Delhi boy. But I think that still did not help the Delhi team, have any kind of success. Mind you, AB de Villiers used to play for Delhi Daredevils. Yeah, and he was bought over to RCB. So it's another team which is really lacking luck.
They've had them. They had. Let's see. Did they have Gilchrist? No, Gilchrist was with Hyderabad.
No, Deccan, Hyderabad, then Kings 11.
They had Sehwag for a while, I believe.
They had Sehwag, yes, yes, they had Sehwag.
They have Yuvi.
Did he play the one season there? They did have Yuvraj Singh. He did play one season there.
And then last season, weren't they? They had Shikhar Dhawan, right?
Shikhar Dhawan, maybe. Yeah. I think Shikhar still plays for Sunrisers. But they did have Shikhar Dhawan.
I thought they did at some point. What they've done
at some point they did have.
Last year, though, was that they invested in some young players. And I think that's good if they can hold on to some of those. It may be a year or two before that really comes to fruition with them, but they have invested in some younger players rather than spending their money on some of the older players. And that's difficult, right? It's like even national teams are like that sometimes whenever your seniors kind of retire and you have the younger guys coming up. And so we'll see. But yeah, traditionally they haven't been the best, even though they've had some good players, maybe not quite as many as other teams. But why is that, do you think? Why do they not have the big name players like other teams?
Well, they did have big name players for a long time. I mean, there've been so many players, Delhi has had, but for some reason, I think they've just not. I think they did enter one semi-final, But that was it. After that, they didn't really make a big noise. And they, when you sit at an auction table, you do have a lot of people with you, like the coach and maybe a few other people who decide on who to buy, who to pick, and who to keep. Be persistent on when it comes to bidding. Delhi has been very confusing when it comes to bidding. Sometimes they've gotten hold of a player they wanted, but they backed out in the last moment. But I think the Indian Premier League, no matter who you buy, if you're not going to perform, it's just you're going to remain a joke. And I want to kind of leave the IPL topic with one thing which Gautam Gambhir said. And he said that, for a captain like Virat Kohli to have 10 seasons and not win a single title, he's pretty surprised that he's still the captain of RCB. And if you ask me, I'm pretty surprised as well. Because, yes, he's the best cricketer we have, in India. He's got the fanfare. He's got the everything backing him. Yeah. But he's not been able to produce results. And I think everybody should be accountable, no matter how big or small you are. If you're going to dismiss a coach or a captain who's not as great as Kohli in 2 seasons, why has Kohli gotten 10 seasons and he remains to be the captain? I think that's something RCB should think about, because until Vijay Mallya, who was the ex-owner of RCB, until then it was very much to do with nepotism. It was to do with personal relations. You're personally good with Vijay Mallya, you're going to be retained in the team. But now that, of course, that's another story to discuss. Vijay Mallya is kind of absconding from the nation, and he's kind of in legal trouble. The new management should seriously consider thinking. I mean, not because Virat Kohli is not a good player, only because you should do whatever it takes for you to win the title. But think about it. Okay, just think about it. Harsha Bogle, a commentator, says something bad. Not bad. He gives his opinion, and everybody has the right to give an opinion about Kohli and his style of batting. He gets dismissed from his job as a commentator. So in India, it's a lot of egos you're handling, and a guy like Kohli, who already is high on success, if the management says we don't want you as the captain, will he be in a position to accept that and still play in RCB? That's a good question.
I don't know. Well, I watched a video with him. He did an Instagram live thing this last week with AB, and he said he was very certain. He said, "I will always only play for RCB." He said he will not play for any other IPL teams. And so
as the captain, but know. Without the captain,
I don't know.
But I mean, it's to be honest, I mean, he's grown with this team. I mean, it's the only team he's played for in all his life. And I think the people of Bangalore also associate RCB with Kohli, but that's the emotional aspect of it. But in terms of potential and performance, we can always say potential, but there comes a point when you talk about performance. And I think performance is what RCB needs at the moment. And they need to make some really tough decisions. I mean, I've always felt RCB did not have a good bowling attack. They did have Dale Steyn and Mitchell Stark, and they did have, Yuzvendra Chahal has been a good, keep for RCB, but they still don't have that attack which can contain a side while they're defending a score. They can chase down scores, but when it comes to defending, I still feel they're bad.
Yeah. Well, and that's a bad combination at Chinnaswamy, right? Because Chinnaswamy is such a small stadium. And so when you don't have the best bowling attack and you're bowling in Chinnaswamy, the scores are going to be high, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's been the story of RCB for the past however many seasons,
let's hope if the IPL happens this year that the fortune changes, and we get to see something. At least in the previous 3-4 seasons, they came close, they came to the finals, we lost. I mean, at the end of the day, you want cricket to be the winner. It's okay if your side doesn't win, because somebody has to win and lose. But what a fan really wants is to see a high octane, nail-biting, thrilling game of cricket. What we saw a year ago, and just sitting next to Chinnaswamy. if you remember. So let's come back to the topic of cricket in the US. How has it gained popularity, and is it gaining momentum as the year goes?
Not that I know of. There's technically a U.S. team, but most of the people in the U.S. don't even know that exists. And for the most part, the U.S. team is made up of foreign nationals. A lot of players from India, or even some West Indies players, and a lot of them are older. And And so they're several leagues down from, the main teams like India. And so, I think they are getting better. They played in a pretty big tournament, I think, in Dubai this year, and they did well in their league. But, they still wouldn't match up well against any like really big name. I mean, even like the second level down with like Ireland and some of those, like the U.S. probably couldn't beat Ireland in a match. But, I do know that the India team was in the U.S. within the last year, right? I think they played a match in Florida against West Indies.
They played a match in Florida. As West Indies, they played a match in Florida. And I sometimes think that, some like Donald Trump or Vince McMahon or some billionaire should probably buy a team in the IPL. Maybe that will probably make or some Hollywood celebrity, buying, investing in a team. Maybe that would be really, really. I always thought about this, now with the power of the internet and the kind of reach everybody has to any part of the world. And how stars like Priyanka Chopra or Deepika Padukone, now Hrithik Roshan has been signed by an American agency to star in Hollywood films. I think Hollywood and Bollywood have kind of come of age in terms of in the quality of films. Of course, we're still not of Hollywood standards. We still are miles to go. But in terms of friendships, in terms of cross-cultural, really sad to see the death of Irfan Khan, who was also the face of Bollywood in Hollywood. That's something sad which happened today. But we've come so far in terms of India and the US having so many similarities. Our stars going there, your stars. Akon did a song in a Bollywood film. Chamak Chalo. I think it's high time we also kind of exchange, our sports interests. Whether it's wrestling or baseball or football. I remember you doing a lot of football in Bangalore. I think you coached a local team. I was there, of interviewing your players.
So I know we're probably going to need to wrap up this episode here soon, but I'll end with this. You're bringing up cricket in the U.S. and what's really interesting about that, and maybe a lot of people don't know, is that at one time cricket was almost really big in the U.S. It was really popular. Actually, the first ever international cricket match was between the U.S. and Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But what happened was it was back during, right before the Civil War in the U.S. And it was a really popular sport at the time. But then when the war happened, the soldiers that wanted to play a match in their off time, the sport was too long, and so they couldn't ever finish a match in their off time. And so that's when baseball became more popular. But at the time, cricket was actually a growing thing in the U.S., but then it never really came back after the Civil War. Yeah, well, it's really cool discussing cricket with an American and to kind of share similar interests because generally Americans don't understand or like cricket or even know about cricket. So this has been a fantastic conversation with you, Ryan, about cricket. And I hope that a similar podcast in the future will not only educate but also entertain and be an infotainment to all the Americans and Indians who are watching or hearing our podcasts. And probably they can share their opinions as well. And I hear that we're going to have some IPL stars in the future episodes as well. So talk to us about that. Yeah, so I know Varun Aaron's going to join us, which I'm really excited about. I met Varun several years ago whenever I lived in Bangalore. We shared some meals together and have just kind of stayed in contact over the years. And so, we're going to have him on. And I think hopefully a few others. Maybe you've got some contacts as well you're going to reach out to. Absolutely. I've been over the years, I've been really talking to a lot of cricketers and from the IPL, upcoming cricketers. So I've spoken to a lot of managers. Who knows who would be featuring on these podcasts. And this podcast has an Instagram page, Round The Wicket Pod. I urge all our listeners to stay tuned for some really interesting conversation between Ryan Mayfield, Vivek Vinayak. We're signing off on this podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. And keep it going and clean bowl all your opponents. We'll see you in the next podcast.